I'm glad that you mentioned that there may be more investigations into Burisma and Hunter Biden in Ukraine and Yovanovitch. Going back to Solomon and another article that he wrote with the title "Senate Panel Moves to Issue Subpoena in Probe of Hunter Biden in Ukraine," he says this: "The focus of the probe is whether Vice President Joe Biden, who led Obama's policy on Ukraine, engaged in the appearance of a conflict of interest or took any actions to assist Ukrainian natural gas firm Burisma Holdings while his son Hunter worked on its board and was paid more than $3 million to his U.S.-based firm." Johnson said the subpoena would be issued to Blue Star Strategies, a Democratic consulting firm that worked for Burisma during the 2016 election cycle as the gas firm was trying to settle long-running Ukrainian criminal investigations against it. Just the News reported Tuesday that newly unearthed memos show a Blue Star representative met directly with U.S. Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch in December 2016 to discuss Burisma and repairing its scandal-tarred image. Yovanovitch failed to mention the meeting during her impeachment testimony last fall. And Johnson is a reference to Senator Ron Johnson of the committee chair, who is looking to investigate what was going on once again in Ukraine, once again with Burisma Holdings. Alexander, there it is. The Russiagate hoax has fallen apart. Russiagate is now Obamagate.
Yeah.
The whole Ukraine impeachment thing has fallen apart now.
Mm. Absolutely. That's it. But look, can I just say something else? Because this is in some ways the thing that worries me most about all of this. I mean, I've never really understood why during Ukraine Gate, Yovanovitch was called to give evidence, because she wasn't in fact party to this notorious telephone conversation between Donald Trump and Zelensky. And as we now know, she had all these contacts with, in fact, was Blue Star, the Burisma's lobbyist group, which she didn't disclose. So why was she called to give evidence? That's the first thing. To this day, there's been no real explanation of this, because she wasn't giving any evidence that seemed to be germane to the issue that was supposed to be the issue in the impeachment. But also, it seems to me that the Democrats, Adam Schiff and company, who called her to give evidence, must have been pretty sure that she was going to deny all knowledge about, what was going on with Burisma, because had she come along to Congress and said the truth, and said, at the time Burisma was a huge issue. I was getting all these comment on all these people, these lobbyists were turning up at the embassy, were asking me questions, trying to get my help, trying to improve the image of Burisma with the embassy. And I was getting hundreds of emails from them and hundreds of documents, pages of documents from them. Well, had that happened, Biden would have been in very serious trouble, it seems to me. Both Joe and Hunter Biden would have been in very serious trouble. And I think at that point, the whole impeachment process would have collapsed, because it would have turned out that, that this issue that Zelensky and Trump had supposedly been talking about was a serious issue, and that there had been concerns, genuine concerns, about a conflict of interest. So how did the Democrats know that she wasn't going to say those things, that she wasn't going to confirm her knowledge, the extent of her knowledge about Burisma? Now, the only explanation I can come up with is that she must have had some contacts with people with whom Adam Schiff was already in contact. In other words, there must have been, Schiff must have known both what she would say and what she wouldn't say. Now, that suggests to me that she wasn't called as an impartial witness. Now, I'm not sure what the protocols of all of this are, but, if Schiff and Yovanovitch, as it rather seems to me, were in some form agreeing her evidence with each other, then that does cast a very interesting light on those impeachment proceedings. And it does make you wonder whether the same wasn't happening with some of the other witnesses. Remember the way in which those witnesses were handled. The Republicans were very restricted in the questions they could ask them. Very restricted. They weren't really able to cross-examine them to any great extent. And of course, Schiff rehearsed their testimony by first hearing them in a basement room with only a very small select group of Republicans present and the media excluded. So it seems to me that we have many questions, very many questions, not just about Yovanovitch, not just now about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and Burisma. Well, I mean, the questions you could ask about those are huge and almost unlimited. But about the conduct of those impeachment proceedings themselves, it seems to me that, to coin a phrase we have heard an awful lot about recently, in recent years, there was some degree of collusion between Adam Schiff and the Democrats and the witnesses they called.
Yeah, Schiff colluded with Yovanovitch. Yovanovitch was brought in to testify mainly as a prop. I mean, she was just a tool to demonize Trump and to bring in a woman ambassador, which was being victimized by the evil orange president. That was orange man bad. That was the whole narrative of Yovanovitch. That was it. She was just a prop.
I agree with that. I also think she had another role, actually, which was to try to debunk the story that there was anything really wrong with Burisma.
Right. I was just about to get to there you go. And her other purpose was once again to provide cover for Joe and Hunter Biden.
Correct.
Same old story. Same old story. All these people providing all these middle manager type foot soldiers, whether they're in the media, whether they're diplomats, whether they're public servants, whether they're judges, i.e. Sullivan, all these people providing cover for this group of elites, Obamas, Clintons, Bidens. Same old story, providing cover for their corruption.
Absolutely.
And there's no doubt that Burisma was an extremely dirty and corrupt company.
Absolutely, and was known to be by people within the embassy, the U.S. embassy. And, that begs a number of questions, by the way. Why does Burisma need to persuade the U.S. embassy of its own honesty? What is going on there? I mean, that in itself, I would have thought, begs questions. But fundamentally, you hit the nail on it. The nail of it. She was providing cover for the Bidens by trying to say, well, there was no big deal about Burisma at all, no big deal about Hunter Biden working for it. But by doing that, she was put in a situation where she came before Congress and said things which were untrue, because bear in mind, you can lie by omission as well as by action. You can, if you hold back information which makes your testimony, the evidence you give, misleading, that in itself is a type of lie.
Yeah, Solomon used the word, and just as a final reminder, once again, because I think we should never forget what Biden did in Ukraine. He used the word that Biden was Obama's point man in Ukraine. And we've said it many times, Alexander, if you can touch on this just a little bit. Biden was much more than a point man of Ukraine. He was a de facto ruler of Ukraine. And he put the country through a living hell. He pushed for a bloody war, family against family, brother against brother. West against East. He pushed that. He had his son on the board of Burisma making $3 million a year. Burisma was looking to do all kinds of nefarious, dirty energy practices in the east of Ukraine. They wanted to clear out land. They wanted to get to the energy resources there as well. Biden was laundering God knows how much money. I wish we could know the amounts of money that he was laundering out of Ukraine, through to Cyprus, up into Latvia, and to the United States. This thing is so dirty and stinking corrupt. We should never forget that. And Biden was the man at the top of the pyramid running it all.
Indeed. I mean, he chaired cabinet meetings. He chaired the meeting, I remember, of the Ukrainian government, which decided to launch the war in eastern Ukraine in the spring of 2014, a war which resulted in thousands of people dying, and which came very close, has in fact wrecked Ukraine. So he was the actual de facto leader of Ukraine. By the way, in Ukraine itself, this is not even disputed. And can I just come back to Yovanovitch? Not only was Yovanovitch providing cover for Biden and his son, Hunter Biden, but a lot of this toing and froing, all these emails that were going backwards and forwards about Burisma that, Yovanovitch was writing and receiving, all these documents that were happening, all this was happening. A lot of this was happening in the autumn and winter of autumn of 2016, winter of 2017, January 2017. So Yovanovitch in January 2017 is dealing all the time on a big way with Burisma Holdings and its American team of lobbyists, and who is also passing through Kiev and undoubtedly passing through the embassy at exactly that time in January 2017, his last visit to the country as vice president, Joe Biden. And of course, he and Yovanovitch would have met and spoken to each other. I don't know what they discussed. I'm not going to try and guess, but she was dealing with all this information about a company in which the vice president's son was a member of the board, and she was meeting the father.
So corrupt.
Who was president?
Who are they kidding? Who are they kidding now?
Well,
when Biden says, "I don't know what my son was up to in Ukraine," we never discuss that stuff.
Well, of
who
course,
are they kidding?
Well, of course, I mean, maybe they don't. But what about Yovanovitch? Does she come along and say, Mr. Vice President, I'm getting all this information about this company. Are you, I noticed there that on the board of directors, there's Hunter Biden. He wouldn't by any chance be your son, would he? I mean, seriously, as you said, I mean, there comes a point when these denials take on a surreal quality. And we know that there were other officials in the embassy, the US embassy, that were very concerned that there was a conflict of interest between Biden and Hunter Biden being a member of the board of directors of Burisma Holdings. And it's very difficult to, I mean, it's not difficult, it is impossible to believe. Nobody with two brain cells to rub together would believe that Yovanovitch wasn't aware of all of this and wasn't, at some level involved in concealing it or covering for the Bidens in respect of it. So I'm afraid, well done, John Solomon, for getting all this information out again. You've